Welcome back, everybody, to Ravenstar's Witching Hour. I'm your host, Solaris BlueRaven, and I'm here with my very, very special guest, John Stormm. Hey, John, you with me?
Yes, I am.
Excellent. Well, it certainly is a pleasure to have you on tonight, and we're sending good vibes your way and rebooting that battery of yours. So, I wonder how much of your illness is pertaining to all the stuff you've been through with the MK Ultra. I really do. So.
I think it all kind of ties together in its own ways, especially when we look at the people who've actually run in the paradigm. Mm-hmm. They have, it's the warlocks, it's the oath breakers, it's the people playing the religious games as such.
Mm-hmm. Well, it can be very toxic, this world, especially if you're, sensitive in any form or design. I mean, there's psychic war, psychotronic war, spiritual warfare, physical warfare. There's so much stress right now for everybody with all this propaganda and false flag agenda stuff that's going. I mean, literally everybody's under stress big time. So, it's kind of like how many straws before the camel, his back breaks, literally. So that's what I'm seeing anyways. But I do know that, the kind of damage they can do to people will definitely affect one's health, and so I just wanted to kind of throw that at you. But
all the way, every which way, I got so much physically wrong. It's kind of hard to imagine a way that I could actually bring it back and recover from it all.
You need a regeneration chamber. You need to go sit in one of those chambers in the pyramids, where you go in and you just kind of go in one of the sarcophagus and reboot, regenerate.
Yeah.
Seriously, cellular regeneration.
That would be nice, or I just move to the next higher level anyway. That was going to happen anyway. As I say, there's so much that they tie to their law and their legal system and their the way they do things, the way they look at things, even when they dig up, archaeology. I love archaeology. Mm-hmm. It's one of my hobbies. Helps understand some of the things about the old ways. Now, one of the neat things is I got a lot of the old craft that I've been taught, even as a child. So I didn't have all quite the same teachers everybody else did. But there was an interesting thing, and I see it every time it comes up, and it's something you can Google, you can look at it, and I can give you a piece of insight into it. It just makes the most sense of anything you've ever heard, especially if you know your own people. And the people happen to be the Celts by any chance, are very individualistic, or very opinionated people. Mm-hmm. Not good for trying to fit them all in a cookie cutter. Celts resist that kind of thing. One of the Romans' first ways of describing us was the word Indomitus, which people inevitably like to translate as barbarian. And it's like, boy, that's kind of showing you something right there, because the word doesn't have anything to do with being barbarian. It has to do with being a person who is not easily dominated, mm-hmm. someone that you just can't come up and rule. Now, the particular practice that, being that we're around Salem, so I mean, this is a lot of our culture that's kind of coming out, and a lot of the grisly stuff, and that they tell you is not exactly true. They talk about the bogmen. Now, this is something that they've been finding throughout most of the Celtic countries, England, Ireland, Scotland, large parts of Europe, where they find these bog people, these bodies staked down in peat bogs, and the tannic acid and stuff has the bodies very well preserved. And one of the things that they note is that all that the people that they found of these bogmen they come from all walks of life. Some of them with very well manicured hands, like aristocrats, and some of them with very calloused hands, like day laborers. And when they dig these up in that, how they have you think of them is where the poison is. Because they tell you that, all right, here's a person who has been, bound and ritually murdered 3 times. And they'll say that was a sacrifice. And it's kind of like, look, when you, I don't know if you're trying to get in Jeffrey Dahmer or anything like that, with a death sentence, you didn't consider that a sacrifice. This was a very, very bad person who committed very heinous crimes, and if allowed to go free in that, he would no doubt do them again. Now, the thing about these bog bodies that they found among all these were ancient Celtic lands, and most of these rituals that you see, these ritualistic killings, were done by the Druids in most cases. Like I say, we put the magi and magistrates. You gotta imagine these aren't just priests and priestesses and popes and stuff like that. They're judges. They're philosophers. They're husbandry. They're music. How they serve their people is in so many ways. Now, I know something that the archaeologists don't know. I know the craft behind the killing, and I can tell you that only a Celt, well, maybe somebody else, but if you're Celt, look, there's certain kinds of crimes that people will do that you're just absolutely not going to stand for, and killing them once isn't going to be good enough. You're talking about particularly heinous crimes, maybe, for instance, like crimes committed against children, that where these people would be taken before the magistrates. The same Druids and everybody else did. Everybody thinks strictly a religious exercise. And whether they're dukes or nobles or hired hands or whatever they are, they've committed certain crimes. They're going to die 3 times. And then they're going to take their body out into the bogs, as far out into the bogs as they can, and they're going to stake them down under the water. And so that even when their souls rise up at night, they will never cross the path of a decent human spirit again, because nobody in their right mind will travel through the bogs at night. They're too dangerous. Mm-hmm. All right. So this was a part of a punishment. It wasn't a sacrifice. It was a punishment for specific sets of crimes, very heinous crimes, where it's not just simply an eye for an eye. They murdered and desecrated somebody somewhere bad, so therefore they deserve to die that way. And like I say, a lot of the academia will try to reel you in with this religious story, superstitions, religion, sacrifices and stuff like that, when they don't actually have anything to do with those things any more than your electric chair has to do with you providing a sacrifice for God.
Mm-hmm, exactly. Yeah. Well, I don't think they're qualified, a lot of them. I mean, it's just one of those things where everything gets covered up. It's mainstream interpolation of information, and, anything goes at that point. But it does take someone who knows and someone who has the heritage to decode a lot of that information. And that's something that, it'd be nice of you to write a book on archaeology and breaking it down like that, just from what you've told me alone is, that's fascinating information.
Oh, it is, and a lot of it does go back, and a lot of it, especially when you're researching, especially among the Irish, we got so many old laws and stuff that are still on books, or interesting little, things that aren't practiced anymore, but are still discussed in some places. Mm-hmm. I say the Celts tend to be a very practical people. They can be as religious as anybody. But it seems like the religion has gotten to the point where it is madness. It's not really describing the truth of anything anymore. It's not preserving ideas and concepts so much as it is insane ones.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, good Catholic man, and I don't really mean to be picking on them any more than anybody else, really. So I apologize to any Catholics out there. I don't agree with your religion, but it doesn't mean I disagree with your theology or anything else. But where you can have a guy that cheats on his wife, Monday through Friday, but as long as he shows up in the church and he puts in a nice amount of money in the plate, and that makes everything all right to be good. Mm-hmm. That's the madness of religiosity, religion in general. I don't care who's. I've seen, there's so many things that I could lay at the feet of organized Christianity. I mean, just heinous crimes beyond belief, all done in God's name, supposedly for God, innocent people killed. Witch hunts in cases where people weren't even witches that they were killing. It was just somebody who had something that they coveted, had property that they coveted. Now, I had in the course when I was writing my Witch Clan series, there was one little novella I wrote called The Demonist Debacle. And one of my friends in there was from another witch clan in Southeast Asia. It was a patriarchal witch clan. It was the Vietnamese friend. And now there, the Buddhists sometimes overstep. They don't like hedge wizards for taking away from their business in the smaller villages and stuff. So sometimes the hedge wizards kind of get run out by the Buddhists. They get the same attitude as the Puritans do in different areas. It becomes conflicting businesses. Mm-hmm. We don't want the pagans or the rural people believing this stuff, so they persecute the hedge wizards. Mm. Like I say, it's not just the Christians. It's all of them. It's all of us.
Yeah, it's just they can't coexist. It seems to me like that, and I think that has a lot to do with programming and entrainment based on behavioral programming. I mean, on religion, whether it's religion or whatever. I mean, literally, if they would just move it to the level of higher consciousness, I think this world would be smoothed out. But I don't see it as getting any better. I mean, I look at the internet today, and it reminds me of a Ouija board, and our mouse is like the planchette. Seriously. I mean, when you look at where we've come and what we're doing with the technology, I mean, think about the times where you don't have to be texting and you don't have to be involved with your computer, and how psychic you are, receptive you are to your environment without all that busyness. And I know you know what I'm talking about. And it seems to me like they've lost touch. I mean, I know how to have a balance, and I think you do, and there are others who are listening. But literally, most people are so engulfed in that false matrix, they'll never break free of it. And now we have more and more words that don't mean anything, people rambling on about nothing. You've got people in mainstream who just talk BS all the time. I mean, what's the point in listening to anybody? It's like read a good book or educate yourself, meditate. These people just don't do that.
There's the us and them attitude, and they do work that into their agendas. The us and them type thinking. I've gotten people to discuss things that they believed that were similar, and the fact, and you see these arguments oftentimes come up. Well, they believe in this and that, and it's but they also said this. I might have quoted Gandhi, and somebody might have something against something that Gandhi believed in personally, but they would destroy, this particular saying, which has all kinds of merit to it, is no good because it was said by somebody who believed in something other than they do on something else entirely. It doesn't even have to be the same thing. They can believe in exactly the same thing or same philosophy, word for word, but the fact that it was a pagan that said it, well, there's got to be something wrong with it. Because they don't believe as we believe it. I know a lot of us there were talents that we used a lot that are atrophying now in a big, big way. And the organized Christianity has did more of that than anybody else for the whole world, as for turning people off from what I call the 5 dogmatic senses. Sight, sound, taste, touch, along those lines. And if it doesn't happen from those 5 dogmatic senses, then there's no way on earth you could have known it was just some sheer madness or some deal that you have with the devil. People once upon a time wanted to know what was going on in a certain part of the world. They would remote view, or they would do something we call scrying. And you find out, you have an idea. You may not know absolutely everything word perfect, but you got a real good picture of what's going on in this area. You may have some conflicting symbology telling you that there's a war, there's 2 different mindsets going at it over who wants the biggest amount of control in one area or another. But people used to pick this stuff up all the time. Now, if they don't see it on Fox News or CNN or something like that, well, then it didn't really happen. And they just become more separated from who they were, who they are, and they're accepting somebody else's input for this particular information, or we get told it's something crazy, and when I say crazy, I mean religious. We wave our hands a certain way. We're going to say, well, we're a religion of love. We wave our hands a certain way and stamp the dust off our feet a certain way. Well, we can hate just about anybody other than ourselves. Find some legitimate excuse for hating them or wanting to destroy them.
Right. There's a lot of hate breeding right now. I'll tell you what, it's rampant in the Middle East. It's disgusting. I mean, just out of control. But to me, it seems like this whole civilization and the illusion of it is a broken record. It doesn't work. It doesn't fit anymore. And it seems to me like the real dead are the people that are walking the earth. That they are the ones that they lack spirit. They lack, on Maui, on the island, they call them howlies, without spirit, without breath, meaning that they don't have a soul, because that's what they used to call them. But, honestly, I look at people these days, and with the exception of very few, a small percentage, they're just not there. There's nothing there inside that suit. So I did a study some years back. I might even still have a chapter in Practical Witchery on that. What I call the soulless. And I had a friend come over from Australia, and she kind of noted right when she got off the plane, just the kind of conversations going on in an American airport terminal, just the things people were discussing was absolutely insane to her. And she's right. She was right, especially the things she was talking about. But people have been giving this, like I say, where they get their vision from is that boob tube, the television, whatever you want to call it. It's a false paradigm. They quote everything as catchphrases. I used to know this one guy used to do that. He'd repeat these things over and over again, like it had some merit, some intellectual merit or something, but it was little more than catchphrases, catchphrases that were used from, sports personalities for, our circus with free bread, for leftover from Roman times. They call it the gridiron and everything now. Like these are actual warriors and paying millions of dollars to play a game. And people will chant these
statistics of these games over and over like they were actually important.
Mm-hmm.
And they had some priority over other things that you could know, like mercy and compassion and good sportsmanship might be a nice, for instance.
Mm-hmm.
There was a time that kind of stuff got promoted, or you didn't play sports,
right?
At all. Though he's a great player, it's kind of like, well, he's not that great if he's that rotten.
Yeah, where's the discipline? Where's the discipline? Well, as a martial artist, and I know, you don't get to a black belt unless you can show control, and that's the bottom line. And it's like, I see a lot of these people. Yeah, they're good, skilled athletes, but they don't have self-control. They don't have courtesy. They don't have respect for their, whoever they're competing against. Usually, it's just ridiculous.
Yeah. But these people will follow them, the Kardashians and all that. I remember when my son was, I was teaching my kids, my Ninja Turtles as they were growing up. And I remember we went to watch a pay-per-view martial arts thing. Jean-Claude Van Damme was there, Chuck Norris, and a lot of people that my sister and I already knew were people that we met in the course of our growing up in martial arts, and we sparred with them, laughed with them, but Van Damme was supporting this guy. He was totally into his cocaine, and people were thinking, well, just because he's in the martial arts, he's like one of us, and and this is a man that just kind of produced himself on Nautilus equipment. He's, some of us might think is just a little bit too soft and pretty for real martial arts.
Mm-hmm.
But Norris was a good example of the old guard type mindset there, where that discipline was. I remember when he was younger, he was like, it was like seeing a light switch get turned on. As soon as the ref said fight, he was like all over the other guy like ugly on an ape. And just nonstop, wouldn't let him breathe until that bell rang and he said stop. And then Chuck would be just like that, standing still as a statue, looking respectfully at the judge and the other opponent, hands at his side, like light just got turned off again. And but Van Damme in this pay-per-view thing, this had my son where he wanted to kill Van Damme at some point for making it into something it wasn't intended to be. He was having, him and his friend were coked up to the gills. When the judges and referees said to stop fighting, they were still sneaking hits in. They were disobeying all the rules, disrespectful as all get out. Everything was just fine because they had the money to pay for it. And that with my son and a lot of my old school students was like, one day if I ever meet that man, I'm going to teach him a lesson. Now Norris was always the kind of guy that would never tolerate that kind of thing, and he didn't in this particular thing. But there was a good example between Norris he's a tiny little fella, incidentally.
Yeah.
Everybody thinks he's tall like me.
Oh no, he's not at all.
He doesn't come up to my armpit. But I gotta tell you, I'm talking about a tough man, and an honest man, and a real martial artist. I mean, a person that does have the values, that kind of discipline. He's that kind of person. Van Damme was, just all twisted on drugs and whatever works for him, whatever's the latest definition of cool works. It'll excuse any atrocity. It's like this religious stuff. People that have the ability to make you, believe in absurdities have the power to make you commit atrocities.
Right. I thought Van Damme, didn't he start off as a gymnast, not even a martial artist?
Who?
Didn't John, was it Van Damme? Jean-Claude? Didn't he start off as a gymnast, though? He wasn't really a martial artist. I thought he, studied martial arts later on.
Yeah. And it was all done in front of, mirrors and...
Well, it was all flexibility, yeah.
It was a very different environment than a lot of us would take it in.
Right, yeah, that's what I thought. I mean, he just appeared as very flexible, nice high kicks and this and that, but, I like basic hardcore martial arts myself. But what do you think of Steven Seagal? Oh,
he was a punk.
Yeah?
He was Black Ops. I don't know, I'd call him an ultra. I wouldn't like to. I lost respect for him when he was once married to a gal named Kelly LeBrock. She was like a supermodel way back there. He beat her almost ugly.
Oh, that's horrible.
Yeah. And then he was doing some movies. Now, I like his movies, but, I like the movies, but, the person he's playing in the movie and the person he is are two very different persons.
Well, that's so funny, John. That's the problem. And you see these people in Hollywood, and they appear as these wonderful role models, and they have, everybody sees this persona, and then deep down they're worthless and they're pieces of garbage. And it's like, man, when are people going to learn? They look up to these what I call false idols, obviously. But, there's nothing better than self-empowerment. Do it yourself. Don't live through somebody else. Don't live through an illusion in Hollywood. Do it yourself, my motto. So.
Well, that was the whole thing behind the MK Monarch. They wanted to make icons, celebrities, people for you to idolize. Mm-hmm. And, now these people were also not very happy because the persons that their spin doctors made them into, it's not the people they really were. Mm-hmm. People like Marilyn Monroe and stuff. She was a very unhappy woman.
Right.
And you think, well, she's beautiful, she's rich, she's popular. It's like, she's not popular at all. You don't know her. You never got to know her. All you got to know was the image that the image makers put up on the silver screen for her, and and in the gossip columnists and everything like that have made up her life and her values, and this is what you think you know. But this is not what they are. This is why, they're killing themselves as if it's unrequited love. They're you think, well, why aren't you happy? Everybody loves you. It's like, the truth is nobody knows them at all. And this whole thing was to get people to reach for, well, I want to be rich, I want to be famous like this person. I want to have all these things. I want to have all these shoes, all these clothes. And it's kind of like, well, these shoes will make you beautiful, right? And they're gonna put you high up on your toes, so that your toes are pointed or crammed into a pointy toe. And by the time you're about 60 or 70, you're going to have feet that are not going to be able to be walked upon anymore, because they will have been ravaged by the footwear that made you beautiful.
Yeah, love those.
That made you think you were beautiful.
So
I remember corsets and underwired bras and all kinds of things that people do. How about waxing the hair off their body? The torture and the things people put themselves through in the name of beauty.
That's crazy. Beauty. I know. It's all craziness. I'm telling you, man. This is why I'm on the wrong planet, and I acknowledge that, because it's just too bizarro. Even as a kid, I was never turned on by Hollywood and all the illusion of fame and all that. I just lived my own thing. I walked my own path, I never was swayed by other people's existences in any form or design. So I think there's something to be said about that when you do your own thing and just kind of ride way and above from all and beyond all this craziness. So, for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's just one crazy thing. So what are some fond memories that you have as a young witch growing up this time of year? Anything you want to share?
Oh man, I used to love combining my crafts. For months before Halloween came, I always had a score to settle with mothers. Some of it more humorously, some of it maybe dark, but I had my reins on it. I didn't go full blown dark on anybody. From the time I think I was in second grade, and I remember putting up the Halloween decorations, and the green face hags came out, and I asked about these, and everybody had to tell me what they believed was witches, and Grandma had to come and pick me up from school that year because I would have been, if left to my own devices, I'd have been burning Christians at the stake. For their description of what witches were, I was just so incensed. My grandma was my biggest hero. You just couldn't say anything bad about Grandma to me. Mm-hmm. And then especially as outrageous as they got with the witch stories. And in our family, we had our own witch stories too, but they were different than everybody else's. But I included some of those in with my Matriarch of the Witch Clan and Warrior of the Witch Clan and those books, because those are our stories. That is our culture. It may be fantasy, but it's who we are. It's the way we look at things, and I wanted to preserve that before I finally pass out of this world and nobody knows what the hell a witch is. It wasn't anymore.
We're very grateful for that, by the way, and it is a good time capsule, and that's one thing. Well, you know what? You lived a blessed life, because not many people have that lineage they can go and be part of. I mean, everybody grows up in a different stage, in a different cycle of their own evolution, but sometimes they don't have that. So I think it's something very magical.
I think it gave me my own stability in a number of ways. Mm-hmm. And it's probably goes hand in hand with how I finally broke out of MK Ultra mindset. Mm-hmm. But I used to, just before Halloween, I'd work on makeup, magic effects. Remember one year I took my ninja night suit and I took about a 12-foot bamboo pole and spray painted it flat black. I got some black fishing line, 100-pound casts, and I hooked a balloon with a little flashlight, a white balloon, and some white gauze and some wire to make the gauze into a big ghosty looking thing. And I got up on the roof and I used the black fishing pole and, the big, it was about a 12-foot pole. And I'd make this ghost fly around the house, through the backyard, up through the driveway, across the front porch. And, I'd make it dive bomb some of the trick-or-treaters that come to the house. And, and they couldn't see me up on the, there's a little flood lamp just above the first floor, to light up the driveway and that. So they can't really see what's going up on the roof or anything. And, so I'd find ways to scare the hell out of the muggles. That would be part of my fun on Halloween night. And I'd go for the ones that were the most complacent and the most sure that they were just too sophisticated to be caught up in any superstition.
That's funny.
During the real old-time religion.
That's so funny. That's great. Well, those are the good old days. Things were different back then. They were just so much more fun.
They were.
I really miss that. I really miss it, John. I miss the life we had as Americans growing up. I mean, I miss that niceness. I just miss it. It's not here anymore. Yeah. It's just really a shame. It really is. That's a blast. So, what did your Grammy do? Ceremony or anything like that for Samhain?
Yeah, they did. Usually, we had one of the houses had a piece of property usually off in the back where there was a bit of woods where they go and they do their ceremonies and stuff. And for a while, I wasn't allowed to practice with them all the time. With my grands, most of the time, yeah. With my aunts and that, they really didn't like the male energy in there. So at one point, my grandma fixed me up with some Dianic witches, Arcadian Dianic witches. I have to specify that. Because one thinks the other one isn't Dianic, just because they'll allow male energy in. One is like strictly feminine, Diana witches, and then the Arcadians, they'll have male energy in there. You can become a consort to Diana if you're a male witch. But they used to have a very similar setup, and we used to go out there on usually the weekend nearest the full moon, and we kind of go out usually on a Friday night or something like that, and we'd sit around and we'd talk spellcraft and compare notes and all kinds of stuff like that. And Saturday night we usually had our Sabbath, and there was, like I say, there was a little bit. It was a rural property, like a farmhouse, and then there'd be a little path that goes in the back towards the woods, and then there'd be a little clearing in the woods, and there'd be a consecrated place for a bonfire. And we'd bring cauldrons or sometimes just metal pie pans and aluminum foil, and have our meal and stick them in the bottom of the bonfire. And we'd have our ceremonies and stuff like that. Sometimes sky-clad, sometimes with robes, depends on what the deal was. And then afterwards, as the fire was dying down, we'd pull our cauldrons and pie plates out of the fire pit, and we'd have a little bit of, have a meal and an afterglow. And those were pretty nice. And generally, I'd come back home on Sunday morning, Sunday afternoon from this weekend like this, and that was how a typical Sabbath or Restat was spent back in those days.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's fun. Seems like nowadays, everybody's like the nosy neighbors are always, unless you live out where like away from people, you've got neighbors wondering what's going on. If there's a ceremony outside, and just like Gladys Kravitz, it's kind of interesting these days. Yeah. But I still love this time of year. It's still one of my favorite times of year. Even, since I was a kid, I loved it. And I was going to let people call in if they wanted to. I don't know if my system's going to be able to accept calls without putting the server on hold. I think that issue has been fixed on Skype. If you guys want to call in 347-688-2902 and ask John a question, we can do that. We've got a little bit of time left over here. And we'll see how it works. I don't want to lose the station. I can always get it back. But I haven't accepted any calls. We had a glitch with the Skype for a while there. So, yeah. So once again, let everybody know how they can get in touch with you if they'd like to connect with you.
You can reach me on my Facebook page. It's probably the easiest because I drop in on that almost every day, every morning. It's part of my way of trying to make sure I get at least some exercise. Because it's almost a mile up and back from the library, and that's where I'll get my internet and answer my emails. I'll be on Facebook. I've got my books around bookworks.com, and they're free. But that information can also be got from me at Facebook. And like I say, we don't have richcran.com anymore. It was just too difficult just trying to keep that up with all the government interference. And
it's really wild. I just, it's amazing to me. It really is. I guess you were putting some good information out there, then.
Yeah, it was. Some of it was getting pretty good for a while.
Yeah, well, the more attention you attract, the more they're apt to be a pain in your butt, or anybody's butt for that matter. So, but still, it's all mobsters, it's all gangsters. Gangsters are running this country and this world, and so really they don't have a say-so. Insofar as really they shouldn't, insofar as how people live their lives or what people say, because what we're dealing with is lawlessness, and there's no law. I mean, there's nothing there that's integrity oriented. Nothing at all.
Nothing.
So it totally needs to be redone and reset. Yeah. But, you sound like
they're still selling aspartame like it was good for you, and then when you find out about that, well, they'll call it something else.
Right. Well,
it's the same stuff, and they know. There's no getting around that. It's like a lot of the stuff we're using with MK Ultra. It's like, look, a lot of this stuff is just, this is downright evil. There's no excusing it there.
Oh, I get so ticked. Yeah. You know what really bothers me the most, John, is that and you know what, you sent me some imagery of your skull, and I couldn't download it. I couldn't look at it, but apparently there were some anomalies in there. But knowing you have that stuff, that to me is the most infuriating, to know that we have things in us that don't belong there. You know?
Yeah. and a lot of folks are worried about some of this stuff taking over them, and I've been told in times past that this does get done, but over time there comes a point when they can't hold you anymore. Mm-hmm. And I don't think I'm like 99.9999% sure that this time when I pass out of this life, I'm keeping going. I'm not coming back to do another tour.
Oh, hell no. Can't do that.
I want to grow into there's so much more of this multiverse to be, to do and to be. And our coming from where we are this awareness, we are this consciousness, and that consciousness comes ultimately from our ultimate creator. As a pagan, I can argue many gods and goddesses, small g, bigger than us, but not quite exactly the creator either. Mm-hmm. So I mean, there's all manner of space for us to grow into what we're supposed to be over the next billions of years. Energy can neither be created nor destroyed. It can be converted from one thing to another. You can take mechanical energy on a dynamo, spin it and get electromagnetic energy or get electricity. You can't create it out of nothing. You can convert it. Mm-hmm. And it can't be destroyed either. So that means our own souls, our consciousness, our awareness, the things that make us who we are, that manifest these works in these present bodies that we have, is indestructible. Mm-hmm. It can be messed with. It can be converted. It can be converted into another kind of energy. And I've heard about this before, and I believe that there are people, if you want to call them people, well, they are just not quite like you imagine people, a little higher than you or me, maybe not, maybe not so much, but are using this energy, just running it back into the world and using it to, look what they do with it now. They program you, they teach you in a school, they teach you things that are definitely not so. For one, Columbus did not discover America in 1492. Mm-hmm. Didn't have anything to do with discovering America. I mean, you can't say that there was loads of canoes following behind the Nina, the Pinta, and the Santa Maria. The Indians were already here. They matter, But I mean, we're taught things that are not so that we can, Rockefeller says he doesn't want thinkers. They want good workers. Mm-hmm. People go in and work, and they figure every one day out of every 4 that you work, it goes to being paid taxes. Mm-hmm. That's before you even get a chance to collect your money. That's true of our income tax system. Now, what's left over of that after those taxes, you're still paying, 8 to 10 cents on the dollar, depending on where you're at, where you're living in the United States. You're paying on more taxes. More so if it has to do with automobiles, there's a federal excise tax on your gasoline, tires, and anything like that. So you're paying taxes upon your taxes upon your taxes upon your taxes. Raise some kids, send them to school so that they can also become taxpayers. They can also buy houses that the banks can take away from them on a whim. And everything about your power, the way you think, is channeled into, you can vote for one of these 2 guys, nobody else. One of these 2 guys is what's going to be the guy for you. running your country your way. See, we're all tied up as slaves, all of us, and I don't care what country we come from. America, I just tend to think of it as worse because we had so many better standards to hold ourselves to, and we got cheated out of all of those.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
You know, but it has been for a life of slavery where you are useful to somebody else, to their power base. And I mean, it's not even important stuff because this thing that you're passing around as wealth is an IOU. It's not wealth at all.
Mm-hmm.
You know, wealth is, you know, when you got wealth, when you got clay on your property, dirt, clay, and you can take that clay, that raw material, and bake it and make it into plates, bowls, and useful things. Cups, platters, pots, kettles, you know, casserole dishes, steins. That's wealth. Mm-hmm. Because you can take this raw material and make it into something useful that you can trade for something else that you might find useful. Right. You know, making these dollar bills and that, this is not money. This is not wealth. This is debt. Mm-hmm. Every time that piece of paper changes hands, somebody called the Fed are supposed to get a piece of that action, a part of that, a cut of the profit. And they're not entitled to it. Not even a little bit. You know, but this is the slavery that we're born into. Mm-hmm. And it's hard to see past it because, well, if you want to teach in a school, you're going to have to believe. I just had this argument with a judge recently because he believes because of my education that I shouldn't be disabled. I could be working in a college. It's kind of like, no, I couldn't because I don't believe what they believe. I don't subscribe to their dogma. And it's what it is. It's not real history or anything like that. Somebody's going to ask me for a test question. Okay, who discovered America and what year was it? You know I'm not going to answer Columbus, and I'm not going to say 1492, so I'm not going to pass it. Mm-hmm. They know it's not the truth, and I know it's not the truth. Right. But if I stand up and say I'm not going anywhere in their system.
Yeah, well, that's how people who are awake are. We get left behind because we are far too intelligent. I say this with zero ego. We're far too intelligent to embrace the illusion and the lie and the false matrix. I mean, we're too intelligent to be part of the system. So, you know, there's no place for us here, honestly, unless everybody else steps up and stops lying and deceiving, and, you know, that's not going to happen. But workers are different than a career. I mean, that's the thing. They always say, we need more jobs, we need more jobs, we need more workers. Well, no, they need people with careers. They need people who can do things. They want career. I mean, you want a career. You don't want a working job. I mean, for the regular people here in America, I mean, you don't want to be a slave. You want to have some kind of a background, some kind of professional background, I would think. But, you know, you're right. I mean, so much is so skewed that what do they have? What do they have to pick from?
Not much.
No, not at all.
I don't have a whole lot that I can do anymore either besides my writing. And I was looking forward to, you know, going into my retirement years, just writing my tail off, you know, just writing more books. I love writing the books. Well,
you're awesome at it, so I wouldn't give that up. And, you know, you can reboot. I mean, I don't think you're on your way out, I mean, unless you choose to be, quite honestly. But I think everybody here is teetering, and I told you that when we first started the show. I don't think anybody, I don't care how healthy they are, we are in very bad times here in this country and in this world. There's too much evil, there's too much noxious, toxic energy, and people need to reset their batteries, and they're only going to be able to do that through spirituality and higher consciousness. And, you know, so anything goes here right now on this timeline, and I'm sure you're aware of that.
Yep.
I mean, I could be gone tomorrow, too, believe me. So, and I do believe that...
Much better off.
Yeah, I mean, oh God, I hate being on this planet, to be honest with you. But I mean, seriously speaking, I mean, I can embrace the beauty of the earth and a lot of the beautiful things that are here and the loving, beautiful people that are here. Some are, not all. But really, what's happened to this world is so disgusting to me and so appalling that I literally am repelled by this earth right now. I mean, by living here, by existing on this timeline. I'm just like so sick of it. And I can't believe people think this is okay. It's like living at the bottom of a septic tank, and yet they don't see it.
It is, and then try not to get yourself dirty. Try. It's next to impossible to do. Well, I don't think quite as bad as the next guy does, and it's kind of like, but we're all in the same cesspool.
And it's such a waste, John, because people have so much potential on a multidimensional level that you're wasting their minds, you're wasting their energy working mundane jobs for no wage. I mean, then there's the violence and the evil that people think they can get away with and do. I mean, it just goes on and on and on, and yet this progression of evil is perpetuated by people in the illusion of power.
I think the chiefest sin that we have that we fight against is sheer arrogance.
Mm-hmm.
Because, see, the reason this works out is certain people believe that they have more right to being themselves, and as wicked and as filthy and as petty and cruel as they are. They think, well, as long as they hold you down, and that they should be allowed to flourish. They should be the gods for this new world, from the Georgia Guidestone. That, we'll keep the population down under 500 million, and that way we can rule you all with an iron fist.
Mm-hmm.
When you have your babies, we can say, if you like that baby, I want that baby. That baby's going to be for me to do with whatever I want. If I want to eat the baby, I'll eat the baby. If I want to sexually abuse the baby, I'll sexually abuse the baby. And because this society will be so perfect, there will be nothing you can do about me taking that baby away from you and using it for whatever, because I'm the God and you're the drudge.
Mm-hmm.
So the arrogance, I mean, even to with how we conduct our religions, our crazy-ass religions, arrogance. What makes you think, even as a pagan, you're picking out this god or that god? It's like you're picking out a T-shirt.
Mm-hmm.
What makes you think they like you? You say, I like this god or this goddess or something like that, and I want to serve them. What makes you think that automatically you rate? Have you shown an affinity for this personality? In times past, where you're in some kind of affinity, some kind of agreement. I mean, even as Christians, now I like Jesus Christ.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't always, because I didn't always know what I was dealing with. I took it for granted that Christians had some idea of what they were doing in their own Lord's name and everything like that. So for the longest time, my idea of Christianity was the idea that Christians gave me, and it wasn't very flattering to God. I know for a fact you can write all the books in the world about some person giving you a confession that the devil gave his mark after she kissed him on his backside and made a deal with it, and that's how she became a witch. And if you give me that crap, I'll take it on. But I grew up in a different environment that was, where none of this had any merit or standing whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
So I know that, okay, let's talk about those 10 commandments. Or were they suggestions, like one about not bearing false witness against your neighbor? Not saying crap about them that wasn't true, like pacts with the devil and all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. Exactly what are those values? Who's going where? How do you tell the players that on a scorecard? Like I say, it has just become more insanity, and people will, and you'll see that same kind of mindset that comes up in religion, also comes up in academia, because we've always done it that way before. If there was anything new to discover in that area, we would have discovered it already.
I know. It's a broken record, isn't it?
Yeah. And that trumpet is sounded in the 1800s and the 1700s and the 1500s. And, I mean, over and over again, and people still ain't getting it. And breaking away for this new thought. I keep hoping that we'll reach this tipping point of people that are, actually awake and aware and consciously endeavoring to affect their world, put some more sanity in it, get people making informed decisions, Well, this is what we always do on Columbus Day. We celebrate the life and crimes of a heinous serial killer. I mean, the man wrote in his own logbooks. I mean, it's not like we're talking about information that cannot be easily had or easily obtained. Their logbooks, and that, the way he kept his sailors placated was by giving them. They seem to prefer. He made note of this, that they seem to prefer 9 and 10-year-old Arawak girls.
Yeah.
This is how he paid his sale. How we named cities after this guy.
Oh, shoot, we're out of time. Darn it. John, we're out of time here. I want to thank you so much for being on the show tonight. I wish you well, good health, and blessed Samhain and New Year. And I want to thank everybody for tuning in. Stay tuned for Shiny Side Out with David Dunger and Meki coming up next to Celiana tonight from Down Under. John, thank you again so much. What a pleasure.
You're welcome.
Take care. Thanks, everybody. Thank you, chat. Talk to you soon.
Listening to Revolution